Hey everybody, it's Naya. Welcome back to Naya's Smiles. Hello everybody. Today I have my September wrap up. I know we're already like halfway into October, but if you guys have been around my channel for a while, you know that, time is flexible here at Naya Smiles. Yeah, so in the month of September, I read 5 books. Well, I'm gonna say 4 3/4 of a book, which you'll find out why. If you've been following along with my reading vlogs, you probably already know why. Yeah, so we're just gonna not waste any time and get straight into this because I read some really good books this month and I just want to talk about them. If you guys don't know, one of my favorite authors of all time is Victoria Schwab. She wrote Vicious, which is one of my favorite books of all time. It's basically like a superhero, supervillain book, and it's really dark and real and gritty, and Victoria Schwab's writing is so amazing, and I could talk about her forever. But the second book in the Vicious series came out this month, and I actually got to meet Victoria Schwab at her book signing and help Hannah from A Clockwork Reader do an interview with her. So I got to meet her and she signed all of my books. This book took me a full 2 weeks to finish. It's like 450 pages. The first book in the series was under 300 pages, I think. But this little beast right here was just everything I had hoped the sequel would be and more. In V.E. Schwab's own words, because like I said, I went to her signing and she was discussing this. In the first book, it's about these characters that are trying to gain control, and in Vengeful, it's those same characters losing control. In the sequel, we get a handful of new characters, and unlike the first book that's mainly just told from Eli and Victor's perspective, our 2 main characters who were best friends and then became like mortal enemies once they gained powers. This book jumps between, oh gosh, I think like 5 or 6 different perspectives, and it does definitely have a sort of X-Men feel to it, but instead of being like this team of people that are all good, they're all kind of gray characters where none of them are good, none of them are bad. And this is something that Victoria Schwab also touched on in her talk that she gave. The reason why I love this series so much is because it's the first superhero, supervillain book, at least the first one that I've ever read, where it's like, it's an accurate depiction of what people would do if they were given powers, right? Because there's this sort of notion that as soon as you get powers, you become a good person, right? Or that like you all of a sudden like feel the need to be a hero, but a lot of the times it's like people get powers and they're normal people. They're not good people, they're not bad people, they're just people, and they make both good and bad decisions. And so this book really gets into that idea, and it is so action-packed, and I love the new characters. We have Marcella, which is a new character. She's like this like ex-mob wife, and we have June, who's like, I don't want to spoil what she does, but she's awesome as well. This book was absolutely a 10 out of 10. I really took my time reading it because like Victoria Schwab released 2 new books this year, and it's gonna be, I know, at least another full year before she releases another book. So I was really trying to just like squeeze out all of the feels I could and really just stretch this book as much as possible because I love her books, and I wish she could release a book every month, but of course that's not how writing works, or at least for most authors. Okay, and the next book that I read, can you guess it? Can you guess? I'll give you a hint, it's by the same author. Are you ready? City of Ghosts, also by Victoria Schwab. She goes by Victoria Schwab for all of her middle grade and young adult books, I believe, and then V.E. Schwab for her adult books, so if anyone's wondering why she goes by 2 pen names. But yes, this is a middle grade book about a girl who can see ghosts and sort of travel in that shadow realm between life and death, and it was so incredible, you guys. It has the simplicity of a middle grade book, but the plot and character detail of a young adult book, if that makes any sense. Because I know people are like, oh, I don't know if I want to read this book. I love Victoria Schwab, but I'm not like, I'm an adult. I don't want to read middle grade. Read this book. I know it's middle grade. I feel like I'm a little biased because I still read middle grade books. I love middle grade books. I love everything. I love it all. But no, honestly, it like Victoria Schwab has this just honest skill of, she's able to keep the detail and the dark sort of style of her writing, even though she's writing for a younger audience in this book. And it was so good. I finished this book in one sitting. If you could see, it's definitely like triple spaced, giant font, so it's not very long. I don't know, it kind of reminds me of Goosebumps for some reason, like those really short, just like little dark snippet stories. That's definitely what this is. I cannot wait until City of Ghosts 2 comes out. It's supposed to come out next year. I believe that's what Victoria said. All right, the next book slash poetry collection that I read and I cried and I lived and I died. To Make Monsters Out of Girls by Amanda Lovelace. She wrote The Princess Saves Herself in this one, as well as The Witch Doesn't Burn in this one, which are the second one. The Witch Doesn't Burn in this one is my favorite poetry collection of all times, not counting Maya Angelou's poetry collection. Unlike her first two poetry collections, this one's more focused on toxic relationships. And personally, I of course absolutely loved it because everything she writes is just, she's an auto-buy author for me. My favorite out of everything she's written is The Witch Doesn't Burn in this one, because it's very much about like female empowerment and just like stuff that we as women have to deal with in everyday life, and she writes it so blunt and raw and just real, and I was able to connect with it so much. That's why it's my favorite of her, all of her collections. This one, like I said, it's more about toxic relationships, which I was still able to relate to a little bit, but not as much as her first two books. But it was still fantastic if you're someone who just wants poetry that just like takes the words out of your head. That's the best way I could describe it. This book actually has illustrations in it, which I'm not going to show you because I don't want to spoil you, but it kind of goes along with the poetry and honestly just enhances everything. And it's in hardback as well. Her other two books are in like a very thin paperback. Anyways, it was fantastic. I'm putting it on my shelf next to all my Amanda Lovelace poetry books. Amanda, if you're watching this, you are killing it. Keep doing what you're doing. The next book that I read, another fantastic book. This month was honestly a just incredible reading month. I just, like, my intuition, or like my soul, the part of my soul that guides me towards different books on my shelves to read, on my TBR shelf, just was on point. It was on point this month. The Cruel Prince by Holly Black. This is the second, or technically third, book by Holly Black that I've read. If you don't know, I did do a reading vlog for this one, which I'll link up if you want to check it out. It was so fantastic. I read this book like a few weeks after reading The Darkest Part of the Forest. I love The Darkest Part of the Forest, but then The Cruel Prince was just like, I didn't think it could get any better, and it got better in this book. It was fantastic. It is about a family of 3 sisters, but we're mainly following one of the sisters, who is actually a twin, and her family gets murdered by fairies, and then she is taken by the fairies that murdered her family, or her parents, and has to live in the fairy realm, or fairyland as they call it. Basically has to survive as a human, which are, humans in the fairyland are kind of seen as like pets, like dogs. Like they're not even seen as like worthy of anything. Her and her sister, but mainly, like I said, we're following her perspective. She has to learn how to survive in this fairyland world, and there's just like the mayhem of the fairy court, and then there's all these like different people, and there's love and romance and violence and just like every trickstery fairy thing. I was really surprised. Like I said in my vlog, I was really scared to see if the book would live up to the hype, because I know it's really hyped up right now, but honestly I can say it lived up to the hype. If you're someone who just loves that sort of classic fairy trickstery kind of riddle style of writing, this is definitely a very classic style fairy book. And yes, I love it, and I cannot wait for The Wicked King, the second book, to come out. Yeah, I'm gonna die, and it's gonna be great. All right, and the last book, which you guys know I did a vlog on, which got both good and bad feedback, but honestly, like, I knew going into it, kind of making that video, that, you know, this is a book that a lot of people, you know, it's close to their hearts, so there's gonna be a lot of backlash for it. But anyways, despite that, I still gave my honest opinion of it, and I actually ended up DNFing this book. That's why you guys don't see a part 2 of this video, but I decided to read Twilight by Stephanie Meyer for the very first time at 19 years old. I didn't grow up reading it. I wasn't kind of a part of the fandom when it first came out. I watched the first movie, but that was it. I didn't really know anything besides just what was in the first movie. Yeah, so I decided to read and finally pick it up, and it was rough. It was rough. I have a vlog up, which you guys can check out, but warning, if you're a diehard Twilight fan, you might get offended, so you might just not might not want to watch it. I didn't end up enjoying it. I got 300 pages into it, and I just, like, the first 200 pages I read with my friend Hannah from A Clockwork Reader, and it was so funny because, you know, she was there, so all these things that were sort of really bugging me in the book, we could kind of just laugh about, and it helped keep me going. But once I got back home and was just reading it by myself, it was a struggle to get through. And once I got to 300 pages, I was like, I cannot handle this anymore. Like, I gave it the best shot I could, but it was just, I had so many problems with it. In the back of my mind, I was like, you know, this is Twilight, this is not the pinnacle of, like, you know, a perfect novel, but I couldn't get through it, and I was gonna make a part 2 to that video kind of explaining why, but I felt like majority of my thoughts didn't change from the first video. You know, it's just the same thing repeating for the next 100 pages. But yeah, I DNF'd it. As you can see, I got quite a bit into it. Maybe in the future I might pick it up again, or maybe I'll just binge watch the movies and just call it finished, done. I did it. I got through Twilight. Those were all the books that I read in the month of September. Now it is currently October, and to give you guys a little sneak peek of what I'm reading, I'm currently actually listening to the audiobook of The Knife of Never Letting Go by Patrick Ness, and I'm loving it so much, but we'll get more into that in my next video in my upcoming reading vlog. But anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. Until next time, keep reading, and I will talk to you guys later. Bye!